Well, hugs Messianic, everybody. I'm back. This is great. I have a unprecedented amount of output in terms of videos that I'm putting out at the moment, which is really good. But this time around, I thought I would do another video in response to David Barnes, who's posted up another comment. And I just thought I would see if I can address some of the things he's raised in his subsequent comment. I don't know if I was really sort of dodging any of your questions. I thought I did a pretty good job, David, in answering the questions. Maybe you can watch the video again. I know there's a couple of things in it that I said that maybe threw you a little bit, but it's I think there's a few things that need to be addressed before embarking on the conversation any further. Now, in terms of your comment that, you know, if I'm saying that there's very little available to sort of tell us who the real Yeshua was, what basis is my belief in him really founded? And the simple answer to that question is the same basis in which Judaism believes in the event of Hanukkah. They reject the book of Maccabees utterly and outrightly because it's not a trustworthy translation. Yet, does that mean that they disbelieve that the event occurred? Absolutely not. They certainly not only believe it, but they celebrate it every year. And there's plenty of other oral stories that have been preserved that keep that event alive in the minds and hearts of every Jew. And so, on that very same basis, I base my belief in Yeshua as being the Mashiach, while the books that speak about his time and what he did aren't as trustworthy as the translations that we have of the Tanakh, to say the very least. There are certain books, such as the book of Matthew, where there are more reliable manuscripts that are available. And looking at from the perspective of a Christian who spent most of their Christian life, or Christian coming out of Christianity into the knowledge of the Torah, they've spent most of their life studying that book. And so on that basis, I think rather than forbid that book to be studied anymore, which is a tall order, which is something that's quite, it's quite a big ask. Rather than doing that, I think there's enough there that is still preserved in those books that give a person some sort of picture of who he was, and especially if they're willing to study using the Tanakh as their basis, they can definitely see that there is some legitimacy, or quite a bit of legitimacy, to Yeshua's candidacy as the Mashiach. Now, in terms of your view that, you know, if you, as soon as you mention Mashiach, then you're Messianic, that's your interpretation, and that's probably the interpretation of many people, in that if somebody says they believe in Yeshua and they have love for the Torah, then they're Messianic, or they're Messianic Jews, or they're Netzarim Jews. Now, the Messianic world is kind of very far away from where they should be, and lobbing somebody into that group that has maybe the same core belief as them in terms of their belief as Yeshua as the Messiah, well, that's you doing that, and no one can change that view if that's what your view is, but it isn't always necessarily the case. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the ultra-Orthodox Jewish world are the only ones doing what Yeshua told his Talmudim to do. And so how do you reconcile that? When in actuality, even though they reject Yeshua outrightly, nonetheless, their conduct and their learning and their obedience and their avodat Hashem is completely, more or less in the most accordance with how Yeshua told his disciples to live. And so that's basically where I'm coming from. So in actuality, the irony of it all is that the Orthodox Jewish world, obviously people who are born Jewish and converted to the Orthodox Jewish world, and they are developing a fear of heaven, they're learning Musar, they're learning Halakha, and they are doing whatever they can to rectify bad traits and flaws that they have in their character, and they're giving Zadokah. They're doing all the things that the hallmark things that the Messiah told his disciples, or anybody who would follow him, to do. But if you look at the Christian world, you can see that there's some other sort of religion and cult of personality that's kind of emerged. It doesn't really kind of stick to who the original guy was, even in the questionable translations. And so that's my answer to that. So on the basis that, okay, yep, I'm saying that the books definitely aren't trustworthy, at least to some degree, and they're certainly not as trustworthy as the books of the Tanakh, but nonetheless, they do have enough information there to get a person to realize that there's something to this guy. And certainly if we see historically there with Yosef and his brothers, when they came to Mitzrayim for provisions, in a million years they would not have thought that this viceroy that was quite cruel to them was getting them to do some quite sort of bizarre things. He was sort of messing around with them. In a million years they wouldn't have known that that guy was their brother. And so, this is a sort of a good kind of drush, a good kind of example of what perhaps will occur with the Mashiach when he does come. But I think Christians are going to be the ones that are going to be more let down than the Jewish world, because he's not going to come in the guise that the Christians think he's going to come in. Like I said before, just picking a guy out of a room, it means nothing unless you're going to do what that guy tells you to do. And though the Jews historically and traditionally have rejected that guy in the room, they have nonetheless done what he's asked them to do. And there are people coming out of the woodwork from the nations, I'm such a person, I guess, that are coming from our capacity and our station in life, recognizing the value that the Jews provide and the uniqueness of the Jew and the nation of Israel, and what they're here to do, what they're meant to do, and that we follow the same God as the Jews, and we obey the Torah in our capacity, whether it be as a Noahide, whether it be as a somebody who is in prison, somebody who is living in a communist country, somebody who maybe has all the freedoms in the world, somebody who's rich, somebody who's poor. You've just got to find out what is the Torah that you should be doing in your situation, your circumstance, and your station in life, and therefore you will be deemed fully Torah observant, because you're observing all the Torah that pertains to you. But what I find a lot of people do in the Messianic world is they kind of distract themselves from the Torah that they should be doing, and they follow after the Torah of intrigue. So I hope that answers your question in terms of what is my belief based on in Yeshua. If I have said that there's hardly anything, we don't really know that much about Yeshua really, and that is, as I said, it is based on the gleanings we have of the Netzrim Ketuvim, even though that document it's not a trustworthy document, because there's so many different translations. Some translations are better than others, that I said in the other video, but ultimately one should be spending most of the time in the Tanakh. There are Jews in Israel, whether they call them Messianic Jews or otherwise, they have a belief in Messiah that they keep close to their heart. They don't read the New Testament, and so you could ask them, well, what basis do you have in that belief? They say, well, there's something going on in that books. There's something going on in those books that most of the world call the New Testament, talking about a guy, and there's some legitimacy to it appears. And so, it's very much a case of stepping out in faith and going, okay, and so what does that mean? What does that equate to? What does that look like? Does that mean that my Torah observance as an Orthodox Jew should change at all? No, it doesn't change in one iota. In fact, it gets even more stringent. It gets even more down to the wire. It gets even more real. But by simply saying, you mentioned Yeshua, you're a Messianic. Well, no, not necessarily. If that person that is believing that in Yeshua as the Messiah, and he's telling you not to go into these communities, not to go into a Messianic community, not to go into a Christian community, then then that's not the case at all. Certainly if a Christian is coming out of the Christianity, mainstream Christianity, and wants to go into Messianic community, obviously that's a step up. But if an Orthodox Jew decides to embrace Yeshua and leaves an Orthodox Jewish community and goes to a Messianic community, that's suicide. That's just, you're going to kill yourself. And so the emphasis should be placed on the Jewish world is to get Jews to return to Torah observance. Forget about these long sweeping debates and arguments about who's the Messiah, who isn't the Messiah. If we look at the Chabad world and we look at some of the people in the world of Chabad and what their views are of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, it's exactly the same scenario, and those Jews in the Chabad world who still believe that it's Rabbi Schneerson is the Mashiach, they're not shunned and banned from synagogues and Orthodox Jewish communities. They're accepted like everybody else. Yet, people in the community believe that they are following a false Messiah. But why are they accepted in the communities? They're accepted in the communities because they're halakhically sound. So when you look at it, it's really not based upon who you believe is the Messiah. It's based upon what your level of Torah observance is and your halakhic observance is. So why you cause grief to one group over here, yet there's another group over here that just doesn't seem to get any criticism. Now, one of the reasons why that criticism doesn't occur is because Rabbi Schneerson of blessed memory, he was a Torah observant Jew, and the Orthodox Jewish world see Yeshua, usually in the guise of Jesus, as being non-Torah observant. But this is not the case, because he would not have been allowed to keep company with the rest of the Perushim, which he was constantly having table fellowship with them if he wasn't Torah observant. So you probably will think that I've kind of dodged your second comment with this video, but I'm honestly answering it as best as I can, being aware that this conversation is public. Your comments are public. My video answers to you are public. So I'm doing the best I can to not posture anything and not, just be real and just tell you the truth. In terms of the website, I used to run a Messianic fellowship myself. I since stood down from that fellowship, and we have our other Zechon took over that fellowship, and I'm in the process of doing some retweaking to the website and so on and so forth. It used to sort of look a lot more Messianic than it does now, and I'm getting there. I hope this helps. I hope at the very least you can maybe just acknowledge the fact that I'm encouraging Israelis, non-religious Jews, to return to Torah observance. I'm not coming to them and wanting to talk to them about Yeshua at all. Somebody who's maybe coming out of a Christian environment and wanting to learn about the Torah, then I may sort of talk a little bit more about that with them. But if it's a Jew, there's no need at all. You're only going to confuse them. You're only going to cause strife when you can just keep things simple and say, throw yourself 100% into your learning of pure, unadulterated Torah. Get yourself a rabbi, get yourself some sort of mentor, go to a yeshiva, put in some hard yards and learn, and become obedient to that learning as best you can. That's all I'm wanting to. The only effect that I'm wanting to have to bring upon the Jewish world. Now, if some Jews say, well, the guy still believes in the wrong Messiah, so don't listen to him. Of course, I don't, I don't hold that against them. And in fact, very much your comments, both of your comments, from where you stand, it's a kind of a grey area. So just steer clear of it. And so if that's helpful to you, if this is kind of causing confusion, then just steer clear of the channel. Steer clear of anything that you see put out by us, and we'll just sort of agree to sort of disagree and part ways, sort of thing, and be civil and be amicable about it. Anyway, any more questions? I think might probably be good to take them offline. That way we can really sort of get stuck into the subject if you want to keep having a discussion. Otherwise, it sort of becomes a little bit favoritism if we just keep the videos, the video responses coming up on the channel for yourself. So like I said, if you want to continue the discussion or anything like that, contact me on Messenger. You can find me pretty easy on Facebook. Otherwise, we'll leave it there. Yeah, I really thought I did better than dodging in the last video, mate. But anyway, all the best, and thank you so much for your comments. Bye for now.